article. I had a woman who works from the DEA, now FBI, in Philadelphia, who has 2 children. And the way I found her was she had done her master's, and her master's thesis was called The Second Shift. And in that, she was talking about women police officers and their second shift as being a mother. And she did a study of like a qualitative study for her master's thesis on like women police officers in Baltimore. And so I found her master's thesis just kind of out of random as I was doing my research, and reached out to her, found her on Facebook or something, reached out to her and shared her with her my first essay that I wrote, the first op-ed that I did. And she sent me back a voice message that was like 25 minutes long. I literally had chills as I listened to this woman's voice who I've never met, who's as far away from me, you know, on the other side of the country. And to hear how it resonated with her and how she was devastated to learn that she was pregnant because she thought she wouldn't be able, she had just been hired by FBI. She was in training and she found out she was pregnant, and how they'd tried for years, like 5 or 7 years to get pregnant. And now she was devastated to be pregnant. And then that she had now shared my op-ed with all these women that she worked with and how much it resonated with them. And then there was a woman in Tennessee at a really small police department in Tennessee who the chief had read my op-ed and asked me to speak with her to like kind of encourage her. And she had just come back from having a baby. Or a cop in Colorado. Like, it was just, to me, it was like kind of overwhelming at the time of like, oh yeah, this is all of our story. Like, we really have all had the same experience. And in the moments where I'm like, this isn't that big a deal. Like, why am I pushing this thing? You know, like that imposter syndrome sets in. It's those people who come out of it and are like, I didn't think this was possible to be a lieutenant and have 3 kids, and you're doing it. Now I think maybe I could do it. Or I haven't even tried to get pregnant because of this and this. And so I don't know, it's been really, really exciting, I guess, and not something that I thought would be part of my path. But no, if nobody else is saying it, I think I got to be the person. We need more women in law enforcement. But if we have not created a culture, that's inclusive and prepares for an influx of women, then why do we think they're going to stay? They're going to stay maybe 10 years. And then when they just start doing family planning, they're going to leave. And I've watched it. I've watched my friends at other agencies. We all get to kind of the same point, and then they leave and go to the DA's office, or they leave to stay home, or they move out of state and their husband remains a police officer and they stay at home. And not to say that you have to choose this over being a stay-at-home parent or finding a job that's more conducive to the flexibility that you need, but like I'm the only female in every room, and I'm the one who has to explain why paternity leave is important. And it's like, I can't be the only one. Like 99% of the people in our department have families. So if we aren't showing that in our command staff as representation of who works in our police department, then how are we able to be good leaders, be good supervisors? I don't know, I'm just very passionate about it. I love my kids, I love my job, and I just don't think they're mutually exclusive. I had an experience when I was a administrative corporal, and so I was worked a desk. I wasn't in patrol, and I had two like a toddler and an infant. And my admin sergeant had asked me what days of the week I wanted to work, and I said Tuesday, Friday works perfect. My husband's also a cop, so it's like that works perfect. We have Mondays off. And then pretty quickly I was working every Monday and needed to stay late on Mondays. And now Tuesday through Friday, I'm also working. I'm staying late Tuesday through Friday. I'm staying till 9 o'clock every night. Like, it was just kind of becoming unmanageable, to the point that a couple months into that, my husband basically told me, like, you pick this job or you go back to patrol, but like our relationship is on the line if you stay in this job. Like, I was just not part of the family, and I have these 2 little ones that desperately need me at home. So I walked into my sergeant's office and said, like sat down and just said, "You're ruining my marriage." And he's like, "What?" And I was like, "I told you I need to work Tuesday, Friday. You keep making me work Mondays. I'm here till 9 o'clock every night. My husband's threatening divorce if I don't make a change. I have 2 magnets waiting for me at home when I walk through the front door. I'm the mom. They're all waiting for me. I cannot be here 60 hours a week. This job isn't worth it. I'm doing emergency services. This isn't, like I'm writing about our, national tsunami awareness. I'm not doing anything really critical or priority that would require 60 hours a week." And he said, "You know what? It's so funny you say that. My wife just gave me the same ultimatum and said, that I work too many hours, I stay too late." I'm like, "Then why are we here? Why are we both here if this is what's happening to our family?" And he apologized to me and said, "I've never supervised a woman before, and I've never supervised a mother. And I guess I just didn't know, the demands that you would have." And part of me was just kind of like, I think you should be able to supervise everyone. It seems like a cop out to say like, "Oh, I didn't, you're a mother, you're a woman, and I've never supervised that." But in my police department, statistically, he's correct. I'm the first and only ever pregnant female officer. And I'm one of 3 females in a department of 40. So yeah, he hasn't. And the other guys who he had supervised had older kids, they had stay-at-home wives. It wasn't the same issue. So it wasn't that I had that experience with him, and he was able to fix my schedule so that I could kind of be home more often. But it wasn't until I read this book by Caroline Criado Perez called Invisible Women, which I would highly recommend. And in this book, she talks about lots of instances within our culture, in our society, where women are an afterthought, where the woman is not considered, and like things as simple as the size of a cell phone. So when they design cell phones, they design it with a man's hand in mind. And then when they said, "What about women? The women's hand is smaller." They said, "Oh, well, a woman can use 2 hands if she needs to text." "Oh, well, how will a woman fit that in her pants pocket? Like her pants pockets are smaller." "Oh, a woman can use a purse." Like things like that you don't it's like that they don't think of us. But then there were different situations where they talked about at the 2016 Olympics in Rio, they had all this money to prepare for the Olympics. And then they used that money to redesign the city. And part of that was redesigning roadways to make it more efficient for travel. And so this team of engineers that were creating these new roadways were building roadways based on the travel patterns of the male engineers. And men's travel patterns are point A to point B and back, that you leave home, you go to work, you go to leisure, you go to education, and you come home. And they did not account for women's travel patterns, which are not point A to B and back. That's more of a trip stacking, where I'm going to go to work, but on the way, I'm going to drop off kids at preschool. I'm going to pick up the medication. I'm going to go grocery shopping. I'm going to check up my parents in the assisted living. Then I'll go to work. And then I do all of that in reverse on the way home. And they had not accounted for that. And so when they built these roads, it necessarily made the women have to take much longer routes in order to get their travel in and get to work each day. And what they did not consider when not considering women is they actually lowered the country's GDP. Another example that she gave was there were a series of natural disasters in 2001, 2004, Sri Lanka and India, where they had major earthquakes, tsunamis that devastated, their countries. 20,000 people were displaced. They have to rebuild homes, rebuild whole communities. So they bring in a team of builders and they start rebuilding all the homes. And after they'd done a significant amount of building, they realized that they had forgotten to build kitchens in the houses because there were no women in part of their building team. So they did not consider the women. And so all of it is to say these examples are that if you do not consider the perspective of the other, then how do you develop a culture that includes them? Like if you've never considered that. And so when I think back to that conversation with my admin sergeant, where he said, I've never supervised a woman. And I'm explaining to him what it feels like to go home. That when I go home, that there's these magnets waiting for me, that my children are not soothed by my husband in the middle of the night, that, that there's certain things that this is just part of my role in my family. He had never considered that. And so I kind of gave him some grace, and that it seemed to me that he had just been building a road based on his own personal experience and his own perspective, and he had not considered my perspective. So why would he build a road for me, or why would he build a road that included me? And so I think that that's kind of become my mission in both writing and speaking, is just to share the experience. Because once you know, then maybe you consider it in, your road building, or maybe you consider it that you need a kitchen, like that. Just because it doesn't affect you, then it might affect somebody within your community. So I would say absolutely that book was really impactful, but since those experiences happened, that really kind of shaped my ability to progress within law enforcement. Now that I'm on the other side of it a little bit, I look back on them, I think, with a little bit more grace for the people involved. They just didn't know. And if I don't share, I've always been like, I'm not a mom, I'm not a female, I'm just a cop. Don't worry where I have to pump. Don't worry about what's happening at home. I'm here and I'm focused, I'm 100%. But I think if we don't share those experiences, doing them a disservice, where they're not able to understand the impact it has to our culture and to our teams and all of that.